We have 5 episodes left. Can they stick a landing, or is it going to continue to cause divide? We have a lot to talk about, and a lot of news. Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Acolyte video. We're just around the corner from the 4th episode dropping this coming Tuesday night, and we do have quite a bit of news. There is a lot we're about to discuss, and it's gonna get quite interesting. Before I dive into it, please be sure to hit the big subscribe button down below if you've not done so, and why not hit the notification bell to be alerted every time that I release a new video every single day. We would be honoured if you would join us. Our main piece of news of the day concerns Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm Dave Filoni. We often credit him for creating Star Wars Rebels, The Clone Wars, The Ahsoka Show, but he's also got a big creative hand in other projects including The Acolyte itself. And Leslye Headland in a recent interview confirmed he was the inspiration for the brand new witch coven we see, the controversial witch coven, in episode 3 of The Acolyte. And fans are very conflicted about this. Dave Filoni not only endorsed Leslye Headland's creative decisions on this series, but had a massive role in creating them, and she admitted such in a brand new interview, and they say this: The Acolyte showrunner reveals Dave Filoni's involvement in making the series, and as I say, the biggest one in particular was the Witch Coven. He's all about world building, so I wouldn't say this is too surprising, but what we got, well, was it the best they could have done with this concept? The power of in an interview with Headland, she revealed that Filoni was her mentor during the writing process. The Lucasfilm CCO guided her on the creation of the Witch Coven, which was pretty poorly received by most counts. And here's the big bit, when he told me, not all witches are Night Sisters. So Filoni is the one who advised Headland she could create witches in the Star Wars galaxy that had nothing to do with the Night Sisters of Dathomir, but they were an influence. In and of itself, there is no issue with this. I've seen a lot of responses to any criticism of the most recent episode saying, well, witches outside of Dathomir are not uncommon in Star Wars. For instance, there are mind witches, there are Sith sorceresses, which were a very interesting concept. There was Morag from the forest moon of Andor. There were a group called the Sayomi on Kashyyyk that were also witches. There are so many groups that they could have taken inspiration from, but it was the execution of these ones. They weren't particularly interesting. And to be honest, kind of disappointing when you compare them to not just the Night Sisters, but more or less every type of other witch in the Star Wars galaxy. And there are theories that they are Sith adjacent or the Sith were present in the scene, but it really wasn't conveyed well. You didn't feel as though they were really drawing upon the dark side of the Force. But look, I'm not trying to be overly critical, this could all change. I'm always trying to see the optimistic side when it comes to Star Wars, and we have 5 more episodes to go. And we know the flashback was just from one perspective. We know from some of the leaks and rumours there is more to come, and not to mention our recent speculation, if you missed it, about the motives of Mother Coral, who may have survived. So I am still holding out hope, especially any kind of potential connection to the Sith. These are just based on my first impressions, that's all I'm saying. I'm gonna hold up proper judgment until the show is done. But thanks to Dave Filoni's advice, that is why we got the Witch Coven, and this is something which a lot of outlets have run with. But of course, it wasn't entirely Filoni. He was just the one who she went to when she said, we need witches in this show, and he said yes, but they don't have to be the same as the Night Sisters. And I will admit, there were moments in the most recent episode which didn't sit well with me, especially the chanting. Nonetheless, given that Filoni is now CCO, he does oversee every project, those we like, those we praise, and those which aren't too popular. And what was really interesting is yesterday, I released a poll in the community tab asking you how you felt about the most recent episode, and the results were very interesting indeed, pretty mixed. We did it as a star rating system, and the largest percentage, at least at the time of making this video, was 1 star. 36% voted it was awful, 1 star. 25% said it was okay, 19% said it was good, 12% gave it 2 stars, and a further 8% said it was amazing and gave it 5 stars. I understand that it's frustrating. And you know, it kind of reminds me of The Last Jedi all over again. There is vehement condemning of the series and others defending it. So far, it's not been my cup of tea. I think there is so much wasted potential, wasted opportunities, and unless it changes and gets better, so far, it has been a bit of a letdown. But whatever you thought of the episode, your opinion is absolutely valid here. I'm looking forward to covering the 4th episode. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. This is supposedly the episode we're going to see May, Chimera, and of course, on the other side, the Jedi, go to Kofar and seek out Kalnaka. There is also said to be a new character called Basil, an adorable fairy little creature who is going to help the Jedi. There are said to be some more questionable moments in the upcoming episode, so we'll assess those when it drops. Another interesting piece of news for the Acolyte comes in the form of something pretty unsurprising, an accusation that the Acolyte has ruined lightsabers in terms of their colour. I don't think so. The accusation goes like this. The Acolyte has given us various Jedi with a plethora of lightsaber colours, but what those colours traditionally signify in terms of Jedi Sentinel, Jedi Guardians, Jedi Consulars, don't matter in this show. I would say they don't matter generally in Disney Star Wars canon, and I don't think George Lucas would have cared, because remember he gave Mace Windu a purple lightsaber just because Samuel L. Jackson asked him for one. I think it's more the rule of cool, as they say. Does it look good? Does it look cool? And assign colour lightsabers to those characters. As someone who loves Star Wars lore and cares a great deal about the expanded universe and all of these little details, it does bother me on some level, but at the same time, it's not unique to the Acolyte. I think Disney Star Wars canon generally doesn't take lore too seriously, or at least not as seriously as some of us would like. Especially if you remember the prequel era, the 2000s, the height of LucasArts, Lucas books, tons of reference books, novels, video games that put a great deal of emphasis on those various aspects, whether it was lightsaber colours and hilts, various fact files to do with species and backstories of characters, which seemingly have gone out the window in so many instances, so I've come to not really expect much in terms of the way Disney Star Wars navigates those areas. I would love for them to have done more with it, but it doesn't seem to matter. I think they just assigned these lightsaber colours just because they looked good. Whether it's Yord or Jeki or Sol, I don't think we should think too deeply into it because I don't think the creatives care as much as we do as fans. And this is a long-running trend. As I say, it's nothing new. So as you can see, the Acolyte is generating a lot of discussion that goes way beyond the scope of just the story itself. I'm not opposed to new concepts in Star Wars, and I definitely think various false factions and cults and witches are all very interesting, but it all comes down to the execution, and I think for those fans who criticize the show but don't obviously want it to fail, and are still hoping for good episodes to come, it's more in the sense that it didn't feel very Star Warsy, and what that means in its nitty-gritty comes down to various things: the cinematography, the handling of the lore, the dialogue and the way various characters speak, the way the Witch Coven is portrayed, the way they handle the Force, the interplay between what we know exists in the Star Wars universe and those things shows want to subvert, which I know is a very hot button issue in the fandom. And then there comes questions like this, and this is one I want to discuss to finish this video. Do you prefer a show like The Acolyte or like Andor? Now evidently I thought Andor was one of the best the recent era of Disney Star Wars has given us. But I don't think the question is asking do you prefer The Acolyte or Andor, but instead, do you prefer the concept of a show like Jedi and Sith, or do you prefer Rebellion and Empire? While in terms of these two specific shows, as I say, I would choose Andor every day of the week. The potential that has gone wasted for a Jedi Sith show could have been insane. In theory, with a budget like this, a Jedi and Sith oriented show could be absolutely epic. And 3 episodes in, had it possessed the maturity and complexity of a show like Andor, I know they're very different in genre, I don't think we'd be sat here talking about how divisive The Acolyte is, but I don't think it's hit the mark for those fans who expected a Jedi Sith show that takes place 100 years before The Phantom Menace. Whether that is down to Leslye Headland's choice of the theme she wanted to include, but also the fact the ramifications for what's been set up in The Acolyte could have a very direct impact on canon. For example, if they want to touch upon Darth Plagueis later in the show, if he had some kind of connection to these witches, that's affected because it affects Palpatine, who much further down the timeline is Plagueis' apprentice. And something I've been recently thinking about, what if the show in a later season isn't affecting Anakin, which is a common accusation at this point, but instead the origins of Shmi? Are those going to be interesting, or are those going to be done poorly? So it's an interesting discussion, and I want to finish by asking you this. If you were in charge of a Jedi Sith show set during this time period, what would you have done differently? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.